friends and educators. We are Lauren and Ann, and we're thrilled to be kicking off our new podcast, The Informed Educator, Research and Teaching in the Anthropocene. Our podcast is for anyone working in the field of education and interested in learning about navigating some of the challenges currently facing our education system. In each episode, we'll welcome scholars and practicing educators to share recent and ongoing educational research and experiences in both the K-12 levels and post-secondary levels. We're excited to explore some of the hottest topics in education right now, including those linked to anti-oppression, social justice, climate change and environmental education, the arts, and decolonizing education.
So, who are we, and why are we excited about this project? Why did we start this podcast? Maybe I'll start, if that's okay. My name is Lauren Hill. I am an assistant professor at Trent University's School of Education. That's in Peterborough, which is in Ontario, which is in Canada. A little bit about myself. My first passion in the education world was definitely music. I started when I was about 3 years old. Both my undergrad and my master's degree are in music performance, specifically French horn performance, which I realize is kind of niche. I spent a couple years as a quote-unquote professional French horn player. It was quite a humble career, but I learned a lot. I played in New Zealand. I played in the Greater Toronto area. Eventually, I became a K-12 educator, mostly music, but I've taught other subjects as well, a lot in the arts. I remember, getting back to the podcast, when I first started Teachers College, there were so many new ideas, and I loved the research connections. I loved the theory. And I don't know if you remember this, but I remember learning about critical pedagogy for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, this could change the world, right? As if it was a new idea. So those were really exciting times during Teachers College as a pre-service teacher. However, after I started teaching my actual career, for at least 10 years, that theoretical and research connection was basically stalled. It was arrested. I became totally immersed in just the practice of teaching, which I realize is 100% understandable. But there was really a disconnect at that point between the practice, the experiential, the embodied, and the actual theory and the research that was going on that whole time that I was just not aware of. And I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is that I feel that during those times, if I had had access to or had been aware of a fun podcast that I could just put on in my car while I was commuting to work to learn about some of the cutting edge research that was happening at the time, that would have really enhanced my practice and fired me up with new ideas and inspirations. And I'm hoping that this podcast can be a bit of a bridge between that research, those researchers, and practicing teachers, especially at this moment in time, which we realize, of course, is fraught with change globally and locally, with crisis environmentally and socially, but also with possibilities for hope, for critical hope. And that's where I'm coming from. And even just doing that little spiel, I'm getting pretty excited. So how about you, Anne? Who are you? Why are you stoked about the project?
Well, Lauren, just like you, I'm an assistant professor in the School of Education at Trent University. And before that, I was a classroom teacher for about 8 years. And then I worked as a learning consultant specializing in inquiry-based learning and outdoor education. My passion has always been outdoor and environmental education. I'm also a PhD candidate, and my research focuses on best practices for climate change education in schools. I became an educator because I was passionate about bringing climate change education into classrooms. During this time, I experienced some of the barriers facing educators who are passionate about social justice and sustainability education. And so I wanted to dig deeper into these issues and find ways of making these accessible to a wider range of educators and students. So with one major barrier being teacher knowledge and confidence around addressing these complex issues, I decided to pursue a career in teacher education. And I'm really looking forward to unpacking some of these issues. And Lauren, I really like what you were talking about along the lines of critical hope and critical pedagogy. I think you did a really great job at talking about that, so I'll leave it there. But please, everyone, join us as we explore teaching for a changing world. Together, we can make a difference.
We would like to acknowledge that this episode was recorded on Mississauga, Mississauga territory, treaty and traditional, at Trent University in Peterborough, Nogojoanong, Ontario, Canada. We are grateful to the First Nations of this territory for their teachings about and care for the land on which we teach and learn. The podcast was made possible by a Trent University Knowledge Mobilization Grant and is skillfully edited and produced by our friend James Bailey.